Hi, hello friends. It is Brianna and welcome back to Brianna's Bookshelf. So today we're going to be talking about all of the book series that I am currently in the middle of. So this is maybe a little bit of a longer video. We've got quite a few series to talk about here today. We will not be including any series that I've started that I'm not planning to finish. So these are only series that I am hoping to actually finish and do plan to continue reading. And putting this list together has made me realize that I have started so many series and I have been terrible about going back to them. So we're gonna see a lot of different series where I've only read the first book. But I mean, I guess it's kind of exciting. There's lots of books and series that I have yet to pick up, so much more to discover. Keep watching to find out what series I am in the middle of. So the first series I have to talk about today is the Poppy War series by R.F. Kuang. This is a completed fantasy trilogy. I currently only have read and only own the first two books, but I'm really hoping to get the next one soon and continue the series. So yes, this is like a higher fantasy series inspired by Chinese history, and I would recommend reading this if you would like to read a lot of really interesting war sequences and like about a war college that are actually like really dramatic and sometimes gets a bit violent, but is like super captivating and interesting. So if you're looking for a little bit more of like a high stakes story, this is for you. And I also think this is for you if you want to read a book that is going to rip out your heart and stomp on it, because there is a lot of sad and scary moments in this book for the characters. And this series has made me cry, which I feel like does not always happen to me for books. I'm not one to usually cry when I read books, but this one did it to me. It's quite intense and emotional, but it's phenomenal. I definitely recommend. Something a little bit more lighthearted, we have the Dangerous Damsels series by India Holton, and this is also a trilogy, and I have also read and owned the first two books, but do not yet have the third book. We have The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels and The League of Gentlewomen Witches, and I believe the third book is called The Society for Tea and Treason or something like that. So yes, this series follows some different types of characters in each book. They're loosely connected, but I believe they could be read as standalones. There's not really like an ongoing story necessarily. And these are fantasy romance. They're a little bit more of romantic comedy fantasy, I would say. Like a little bit more lighthearted. The fantasy is not super serious or high stakes. It's just for when you want to have like a silly, goofy time. The first book is following some characters who are in this society of pirates, and the second book is about a society of witches, and then I believe that the third book is about spies. So that sounds really fun as well. All the characters are super like spunky and funny, and this is just a great one for when you want to smile and just have your day be a little bit brighter. So one that I just recently started is the Zodiac Academy series, which is by Peckham and Susanne Valenti. And this is a longer like fantasy romance series. I want to say that there are 9 books, like full-length novels, and there's also many novellas, and I think there's also multiple spin-off series. So this is like a whole deep world to get into if you are interested in having a series that you can come back to and visit all these different characters. But so far I've just read the first book, which is called The Awakening, and in The Awakening we meet our main characters Tori and Darcy Vega, and they are twins in the mortal world who find out that they are actually like the long lost kids of the Queen and King of the Fae world who have just been killed. So these girls have to go back to the Fae world and start to learn their powers at Zodiac Academy, which is this academy where all the Fae go. It's very drama filled. It's super like cutthroat. Everyone is really mean to each other. There's like these vicious different groups and houses that are pitted against each other, and they come to realize there's this group of guys who were told basically that they would be the heirs to the throne in Tori and Darcy's absence, but now that the girls are back, these guys are super threatened by them, and they are extremely like cruel to these girls, and this is actually a bully romance series. So if you're interested in trying that, I would recommend checking it out. The writing isn't like necessarily anything super literary or anything like that. It's not a high fantasy. It's like very easily accessible. It's a really fun time to read, but do know that it is like a little bit of a darker fantasy romance, but a fun one, and I'm excited to continue on. I've heard that it just keeps getting better the further that you go with that series. So next we have the only Sarah J Maas series that I have not finished yet, and that would be Throne of Glass. I believe if we include the prequel, The Assassin's Blade, this series is 8 books long. So I'll show you like what I've read so far. I've read The Assassin's Blade, Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, and Heir of Fire. So that's as far as I've read so far. I do also own Queen of Shadows, but I just got this. I haven't read this yet. And then after Queen of Shadows, there are 3 more books to make 8 in total. So this is a little bit of a longer fantasy series, and I would say this is more of a fantasy with a romance subplot. This is Sarah J Maas's first series that she wrote, and it starts off leading a little bit younger, I would say, more of like a young adult, and then it does feel like as the series goes on, it's maybe going to move more into new adult, but I'm not quite sure since I haven't reached like the later books yet. In this series, we're following Selena Sardothian, who is an assassin, and she's super badass. So Selena becomes the champion for the king. So she has to fight in this like series of trials against a bunch of other assassins and champions for different kingdoms, and she's fighting in order to earn her freedom. And there is like a whole lot more to the story, but there's not much I can say else without giving spoilers since this is such a long story. There's obviously like a ton of twists and a ton of different things that happen as the story goes on, and I'm still just like halfway through it. It is a good one. I honestly, right now, it's like my least favorite of Sarah J Maas's series. I still enjoy it, but I have not given any of the first 4 books 5 stars, which I feel like may be an unpopular opinion because I know people like are diehard for this series. But yeah, for whatever reason, I am liking it, but I'm not like obsessed with it at this point. Next, mixing up the genres a little bit, we have the Stalking Jack the Ripper series. And this is a 4-book series, and I own and have read the first 2. So we have Stalking Jack the Ripper, and we also have Hunting Prince Dracula, and these are both by Kerri Maniscalco. This is like actually a bit of a mix-up from the other series we've talked about so far. This is more of like a historical mystery series, I would say. So in this book, we are following Audrey Rose, who is this girl in like Victorian England, and her uncle is like an autopsy technician, I guess. So he like looks at dead bodies and tries to find out what like how people were killed. And Audrey Rose is super interested in this profession, and she is training under her uncle to learn how to become an autopsy technician herself, which is of course very outside the realm of norm for a girl in Victorian England. So she definitely has folks in her life, her father, other people she knows who don't want her to be doing this. But through this, she gets wrapped up and involved in the mystery of Jack the Ripper and the Jack the Ripper murders. And she meets this young guy named Thomas Cresswell, who is also training to be an autopsy technician. And they work to solve the mystery together, and they just keep getting involved in more shenanigans. So in book 2, they go to Romania, and they're trying to find out if Dracula is making a comeback. So this is just a fun like romance mystery kind of young adult series, and there is definitely like some darker elements to it. I think that this is a really fun series to read during fall and during Halloween, and I really love the couple in this one. They just make me so happy. And yeah, there's 4 books in this series, so I have 2 more to read in the future. So another series that I am in the middle of is the Maze of Shadows series by Kathryn and Kingsley. So she writes a lot of like darker romance, and I believe all of her books are on Kindle Unlimited. So I read her Harrow Fair series like a year ago, I think, or maybe it was 2 years ago, and I was really obsessed with that. You should definitely check that one out as well. It's like a dark fantasy romance set in a circus. Absolute perfect vibes. But this series is the next one of hers that I'm trying, The Maze of Shadows, and I've read 2 out of the 4 books. So the first books are The Unseelie Prince and The Unseelie Crown, and this is like a dark fae fantasy romance series. So in the first book, we're following our main character, who is a human, and she like lives in this small village, like pretty far away from other people, and like in this house, and she ends up meeting the Unseelie Fae Prince, and he basically abducts her and puts her into this maze that he's created, and says like she has to reach the center of the maze before he gets her, or she will become his wife. And there's like this whole prophecy about him, about how he will be able to unlock his powers once he gets married and becomes king. And when that happens, like he is like going to basically end the world and like kill all of the fae, because he's like super chaotic and like really on his revenge arc, and also like pretty cruel. And I liked the first one. I thought it was a fun time, and I was like hoping for the relationship to develop a little bit more, which is what has kept me reading so far. Honestly, the second one, I was not a big fan of. It felt like a lot of filler, but I'm going to keep going with this series because I did love Kathryn and Kingsley's Harrow Fair series so much that I'm hoping that this is going to get better. So I'm going to continue on and see where this relationship goes. So my next series that I am in the middle of is the Legacy series by Melissa K. Roehrich, and this this series is going to have 4 books as far as I know. Now, I've only read the first one so far. The first book is Reign of Shadows and Endings, but I did love this so much that I had to go and buy all of the ones that are currently out. So I do also own Storm of Secrets and Sorrow and Tempest of Wrath and Vengeance, but I've not gotten to these later ones yet. And this series follows Tessa and Theon. This is fantasy romance. This is like a dark fantasy romance, by the way. So in this world, the Fae are kind of like lower on the totem pole, and there are these creatures called Legacy, which are basically like one step up from Fae, but underneath gods. They're like descendants of the gods, and they have power over the Fae. And in this series, the Fae can like give their powers to the Legacy, so some of them become sources to important Legacy people, and like basically lend them their powers to help those Legacy become more powerful. Now, in the first book, our female main character, Tessa, she is Fae. She really wants nothing to do with the Legacy, but against her will, she gets picked to be the source for one of the Legacy heirs, Theon. And so yes, he picks her to be his personal source, to be his source of power, and she absolutely wants nothing to do with him. So this is a very dark romance, and I would say in this first book we really don't get a ton of romance at all. Like there's a little bit of like tension between these characters, but they also like really actually like hate each other. So this is gonna be like extreme enemies to lovers. I know I've seen a lot of people that don't like this series because of how dark it is, so definitely like check the trigger warnings before you go into this series. But I think that this is like really fun and different from a lot of fantasy romance books that I've read before, and I'm really curious to see where the plot goes, because from the start we're really just like seeing the interaction and relationship between Tessa and Theon and their struggles to get along, and the plot definitely starts to move a little faster towards the end of this book, so I'm really excited to see where it goes from there. I've also started reading the Atlas 6 series by Olivie Blake. I have so far only read the first one, the Atlas 6. There are 3 books, so this is a trilogy. And this is also fantasy. I would say, yeah, fantasy, not really fantasy romance. And it's basically about these different people who all get recruited to be in a secret society. And this is like full of like plotting and secrecy and drama and revenge. So if that's your type of thing, I would say definitely pick this one up. For me, this one was good, but not a total love. So this is one that I probably will continue, but I'm probably going to keep an eye out for any of the following books being at the used bookstore and try to read them that way. Because yeah, I wasn't totally sold by the first book, but I'm definitely interested in trying the rest and seeing where it goes, because the story was very like tense and high stakes, and I feel like with a little more time with the characters, I could probably get to care about the story a little bit more than I do right now. Next, we have the Witch Walker series by Charissa Weeks. So the first book is The Witch Collector. This is the only one I've read so far. The second book is City of Ruin, which I actually just started reading, and I'm like still at the very beginning. And then we have The Wolf and the Witch, and there is also a fourth book coming. So yes, 4-book series. I've only read number 1 and I'm working on number 2 so far. And in the first book, we are following Raina, who lives in a small village, and there are witches in her society, and every year this guy who's called the Witch Collector, who has like these different powers, and he'll come to the different villages all throughout the kingdom every year, and he collects, I believe it's 1 witch from each village, and these witches are supposedly brought back to the castle, and they help to like use magic to protect the castle. So they're basically like brought into service of the king. However, this is kind of like a dreaded practice. A lot of people like don't want to see their children be taken away, and they're not totally sure what exactly happens to these girls when they're taken away. They usually don't see them again. And our main character in this book, Raina, her sister was previously taken by the Witch Collector, and she absolutely hates him. She has a bone to pick with the Witch Collector because she fears that something horrible has happened to her sister, and she just wants to be able to see her again. So she hatches this plan that when the Witch Collector comes this current year, she will murder him. Now, her plan doesn't go perfectly because her village ends up getting attacked by outside sources when the Witch Collector comes, and she is forced to team up with him to help protect her village. So this is basically reluctant allies to lovers, and it was a really fun time. I did really like it, and to be honest, I'm not really sure where the plot goes from here, but I've heard a ton of good things about this series, and this is like an independently published fantasy romance series, so it's a really fun one to read now while you have the chance to have these cool indie covers. It might get changed later on, we'll see. So another series that I've started but I've only read the first book so far is the Scholomance series by Naomi Novick. So right now I've only read the first book, which is A Deadly Education, and this came out a while back, but I've always been curious about it and just finally got around to reading it this past fall. And this is a really fun one. This is like a YA fantasy romance in an academic setting, so it's like also dark academia. So the setting of this school is really intense because the school is basically always trying to kill the students, and it's filled with all these demons, and like every day they're at school is like a battle to stay alive, and it's very intense. So this was a really fun one, and I'm really hoping to continue the series. It's one that I'll probably read again like in the fall time, continue it, because it's definitely giving like a Halloween vibe. Next we have Fear the Flames by Olivia Rose Darling, and as far as I know, I think this is going to be a duology, so there's one other book coming out this year. It's possible there might be more coming, but I'm not sure. I'm only aware of that other one. And I have the independently published version here, so I've read this before. This was traditionally published, but it is now in a different form with like a different cover. And in this book we're following Eowyn, who is the queen of this kind of like secret kingdom that's far in the north, like in this wilderness. So most other folks who are in this continent do not know that this kingdom exists. It's like small, they don't have many resources. It's kind of like this ragtag group that's basically led by Eowyn. And one day she runs into Commander Caden, who is the commander of the army of Veraveth, which is like the main kingdom on this continent, who she's been worried about and feels like they could threaten her kingdom if her kingdom is more well known. So this is enemies to lovers, and Eowyn and Caden meet with a knife to the throat, so it is a knife to the throat trope if you're into that sort of thing. And this is a really fun one. I'm looking forward to seeing the next one come out. Then we have the Saga of the Unfated series by Danielle L. Jensen, and I only currently have A Fate Inked in Blood, which is the first book here. It has these beautiful blue sprayed edges from the first edition, and this is going to be a duology, and the next book I believe either just came out or is about to come out. So this is about to be completed, and this is like a Norse mythology inspired fantasy romance, and we're following Freya, who is like blessed with the powers of being a shield maiden. But when we start out, she is living in a small village, and she's in this really unhappy marriage with this guy who basically like totally takes her for granted and is like super mean to her. And her husband actually ends up like selling her out to the local, or like to the Jarl, which is kind of like a leader of some sort of tribe or kingdom in this world. And so yes, her husband sells her out to the Jarl for, I think, like fish or money or something. I don't know, it's really ridiculous. And so she's supposed to marry this Jarl who's like this old man, and she actually starts to fall in love with his son, who is the warrior of their kingdom. And there's a lot of drama in this one, a lot of like secrets and betrayal and really interesting magic. So I'm super excited to complete this duology. Then we have the Emily Wilde series by Heather Fawcett. I have only read the first book, and this is a trilogy. So the first book is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, and this book is just so delightful. Honestly, the only reason I haven't read the other books yet is because I was waiting for them to be released in this like Barnes & Noble paperback edition, because I prefer this cover. I know the second book now has been, so I need to go pick that up, and then I will be waiting for the third book to come from hardback to this beautiful paperback edition that has a different cover. But in the first book, we are following Emily Wilde, who is a professor who studies fairies, and she is basically writing the first encyclopedia of fairies in the world. So she's an academic researcher. She's super into science. She loves to like find different fair folk and fae and brownies and all different kinds of like mythological fairy creatures, and observe them and write about them and what she finds. And like she writes about their culture, like their different practices, what they eat. Like, yeah, she's just like a scientist who studies them. And in her quest to finish this encyclopedia, she goes to this like kind of cold northern island where there's a species of fae that she has not yet studied, and she is determined to find out more about them and to become like the first person to really know about the Society of Fairies so that she can include it in her encyclopedia. And so she goes to try to make contact with them and observe them, but they turn out to be a little bit harder to get to know than she thought. So she definitely thinks that, you know, she's the expert on fairies. She knows like how to deal with them, but they proved to be a little bit more challenging than she expected. And her basically like rival professor at her college, Wendell, ends up showing up on the island, and he says he's going to help her make contact with these fairies, but she wants no part of it because she is kind of she's like an academic rival with Wendell, and she thinks that he is just coming to steal her thunder and try to discover these fairies first. But she's kind of forced to work with him because he seems to be getting better results with this group of fairies than she is. So this is like academic rivals to lovers. It's not spicy, it's like very wholesome, but a super fun time, and I would definitely recommend this. And all the books are pretty seasonal, so this first one I feel like is very wintry. The island they're on is very like cold and frosty. So I'm not totally sure, but I'm expecting the next one might be kind of a spring vibe, but we will see. And then last but certainly not least is the House of Devils series by Kayla Edwards. So I actually just started this series. Okay, so I literally finished this book, the first book, this morning before I started filming. So super fresh. This is another like dark fantasy romance series. I don't have the book to hold up because I read the first one on Kindle Unlimited. I believe there are 3 books out so far, but when I checked on Goodreads, it says there is going to be 6 total that are planned. So yes, this is potentially a 6-book series. And in the first one, we are following Lorraine, who is a human girl in this world of like mostly different kinds of magical creatures. Like her best friends are witches, and there's also werewolves and vampires in this world, and there's also these creatures called Hellseers, and the Hellseers are in these different kind of like bounty hunter gangs within the city who get paid to kill their targets, and the Hellseers are able to see people's auras, so that's how they track their target. And as we start the series, Loren, she starts to get targeted. Like, different people are coming to try to capture her, and her friend actually gets captured instead, and she can't figure out why anyone would want to capture her because she is immortal. She has like nothing to offer, hasn't been involved in anything suspicious. Hey y'all, so my storage ran out, so I had to sort that out, and now I'm coming back to you the next day to wrap up this video. So we were talking about the House of Devils series, the first book, City of Gods and Monsters, and I was just talking about how Loren is being hunted down and her friend gets taken in her place. So she ends up meeting Darien Castle, who is the leader of the House of Devils, which is one of the Hellseer like bounty hunter groups. And he is like very interested as to why she's being hunted down, and he was also given like a proposition to hunt her down himself. But upon meeting her, he like feels really bad for her and is like, I don't know why anyone would be wanting to hunt for a human girl. So he ends up kind of offering to give her some protection and help her figure out exactly what's going on. And Darien Castle is just such a good book boyfriend. Like, he is so gruff, he's like such a killer in the beginning. But as we get to know him, we realize like he is really like a tortured soul, and he has like so many emotional issues, and Loren really helps him through that, and he is like just becomes obsessed with her. So it is such a good romance, and I just was obsessed with that book. It was so fun, so I cannot wait to continue reading that series. Alright everyone, so those are the series that I am currently in the middle of. As I said before, a lot of them I have only just started, and I have many more books to read, so it's kind of an exciting prospect to think about all these worlds that I get to dive deeper into in the future. However, I am still always on the hunt for other series that I have my eye on to start as well. So please let me know down in the comments if there's any series that you didn't see on here that you think I need to start as well. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!